Okay, so it's time to upgrade my gaming rig. It's currently running on a Ryzen 3800X with a Radeon RX 5700 XT, the Sapphire Nitro card. So yeah, I've been running this rig for a good few years and it's time for an upgrade. So first of all, let's go through some of the bits that we're going to be upgrading today. I'm keeping the bare bones of the PC, not upgrading the motherboard. MSI Edge X570, I believe, if memory serves me right. So we're going to be upgrading the processor from the Ryzen 3800X and we're going to be upgrading to the Ryzen 9 5900X. We're going from 8 cores to 12 and a speed increase as well. So it's going to be quite a substantial improvement to processing power, not just for gaming but for productivity as well. I do have NVMe hard drives in there, but when I built this machine, basically it ended up to 256 gigabyte NVMe drives, which, as we all know, doesn't get you anywhere in this day and age. Do have more hard drive space that I utilize, but it then goes down to SSDs, and then I've got an external mechanical hard drive as well. But I'm going to be upgrading with two 2 terabyte NVMe drives. We've got a Lexar and a Crucial, so we're going to be substantially improving and upgrading with our storage capacity. And then the piece de la resistance is going to be upgrading from the Radeon RX 5700 XT to the Radeon RX 7900 XTX. When I built the machine with the 5700X, that wasn't even top tier card at the time. I mean, when I built it and I was running on a 1440p monitor, it was doing alright and definitely held its own to a certain point running at 1440p. But now, in today's gaming climate, it is definitely a 1080p card and it was definitely time for an upgrade. So this is the big boy. Well, processing power and the GPU are definitely a massive step up in performance. And to go along with all this extra power, we're having to upgrade the power supply as well, and we're going to be installing the Corsair RM850E, obviously 850 watt. Currently I think it's only a 650 watt PSU I've got in the machine. It hasn't been a problem running all the parts in there. No upgrade to the RAM. It's got 32 gigs of RAM in there. Certainly sufficient enough for my productivity needs and definitely gaming needs. I am running 4 slots. I know that not necessarily efficient, especially when we're talking gaming. It'd be much better if I was running 2 16 gig RAM sticks, but this is what I've got and see any reason why I need to upgrade it at the moment. But first of all, this machine is well overdue a clean. As you can see from the disgusting mess, yeah, this thing needs a deep clean, so we're going to be taking it apart to take something off. Set it aside somewhere safe. Yeah, it's a little bit messy. This is Scythe air cooler. Be sticking with this bad boy. Yeah, this RX 5700 XT has served me well up until now. Never been a top-end GPU, but for my needs and the sort of games I played, I've never really pushed it beyond its limits. I am going to be upgrading my display from a 1440p that I was running on the 57 XT to a 4K display on the RX 7900 XTX. But yeah, next thing I've got to do is we're going to remove all the filters to start with, and yeah, that is clogged. Yeah, do not do what I've done and let it get this messy. I do tend to clean it out semi-regularly, probably not as much as I should. I'm just reaching in and unclip the clips to release the front panel with the mesh, and yeah, that's pretty disgusting. Now, I haven't got any canned air for this, but what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to take it to the shower and just rinse all this through, and it does a pretty much perfect job in getting rid of all of this unwanted dust and nastiness. So that's what we're going to do next. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to use the shower just to rinse off any of this grime and dust that I don't want. I guess there's some circumstances that if you've got any mesh that's got any exposed metal, then you might not want to use water on it, but I'm comfortable with it. Yeah, if you are, then you can use the same method. It does work really well, but if you're not sure, then probably just stick to using canned air or a brush or vacuum, preferably with a brushed end. But let's get this started. I mean, as you see, water does work great here. It pretty much gets rid of everything you want to get rid of. Okay, and now while we're attending to the rest of the computer, they can stay here and dry until we're pretty much finished and can put them back on. Okay, so next I'm just going to be disconnecting and removing some of the components, starting with the GPU. Okay. Start with disconnecting. Got that down there, out of the way. We're going to try. Yeah. Need a longer neck on the screwdriver to be able to get in there. Out comes an old piece. I mean, it was a good looking card. This will now be donated into my wife's computer, and her GPU will be donated into my youngest card, which is a RX 580. So yeah, upgrade for both. Because believe it or not, my youngest son's computer is rocking a R280 or 290. I cannot remember, but yeah, very old out-of-date card, so that would be a definite upgrade on both parts. Yeah, as you can see, progress has been halted by an attention-seeking cat. So, but what do you need to film other than me? I'm all you need. And you can listen to me chat to you. I will deal with this interruption and then we can get back to it. Okay, so next I'm going to remove the NVMe drives while I try and remember how to get the CPU cooler out. You've got to make sure you're using the right appropriate screwdriver that can get these screws out. You don't want to damage them. You also want to keep them somewhere safe, so if you can find a little pot just to pop them in, keep them safe. So these weren't bad NVMe's for back in the day, I suppose. I had one Western Digital black NVMe. I can't remember the speeds, they weren't bad though. And then one Samsung 960 Evo, but both being 250 gigabytes. They're more or less redundant unless you're using it literally just to run your operating system off of. But even then, just with various things that get added, as much as you try not to use it, it will get filled up pretty quick. Alright, now just to try and remember if I just remove these fan clips and get the fans out of the way. Move that out of the way. It's going to need a clean up too. The whole thing. Right. Yeah, these screws are a little bit awkward to get to, but if you've got an extension tool or something, let me help you out. And the process comes with it some of the time. Just if that happens, try and give it a bit of a twist. Be careful not to damage the pins. Okay, now all that's left is to remove the power supply, which means I'm going to need to disconnect the rest of the power cables. It's just a case of turning the machine around now, which is equally as disgusting, and trying to disconnect the power for the SSDs I have in there as well. This is where Velcro straps would be a lot better, but I didn't have them at the time, so everything in here is zip tied. So if you've got zip ties, some little snips, make sure you don't damage your cables, and remove them all. Well, all the relevant ones that you need to get out. Make sure you don't damage your cables, because that would be very sad. Right. So we can get these out. So I've got a shroud on mine, and I just captive screws. That's what it's called. Captive screws, because they're held against their will. Yeah, so it's an EVGA 650 watt power supply. I was rocking before. So everything that comes out of this machine, I'm going to be passing on to one don't want to come in, onto my wife, to upgrade her machine. And then what components they replace from my wife's machine will be going onto my son's. Out of 4 boys, he's the only one that's really been left behind with computer component wise. It wasn't so long ago he was actually still trying to get along with an old AMD FX CPU. Right, that's all the screws out. Obviously, everything that comes out, as you can see, is going to need a damn good clean before it goes into another machine. So it enables me to be able to do that as well. Okay, now I'm at this point, I'm going to be doing a bit more cleaning. So yeah, if you've got canned air, that's a really good way to loosen everything up. Like I said, I haven't. My supply run out and I have no spare. So yeah, I'll probably be taking out the fans. And if you've not got a can of air, either a Hoover attachment, or vacuum attachment with a brush end. If you haven't got a brush end, which I did, but I mean the dog probably ate it or something, but if you haven't, you can use your Hoover and a brush, like a paintbrush, and you can just go around loosening it off and hoovering it as you go. Obviously, always being very careful of what you're doing. So I'm going to do all this off camera, and then we'll come back for the installation of parts. Okay, so as you can see, I decided to take everything out of the case, all the fans off, motherboard out, just so I could get in and give it a proper good cleaning out. There's some residual stuff there. I'm just going to use a very slightly damp cloth just to clean up the last of it. I've still got all the fans to go over. That's disgusting. And yeah, so yeah, I've taken out the hard drive cage as well, giving them a clean up. The I don't know what you want to call it. The cable tidy thing that goes out as well. And yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good so far. If you're wondering, I think this is the Cooler Master H500. I think it's been a pretty good case up to now, and given me no reason to change the case. The only reason I change case at this point, or this point, not too distant future, is aesthetics really. I'm getting older now. This is like a RGB case, so maybe a bit more of a subtle high airflow case in the future might be in order, but for the moment this will do me just fine. Okay, so I have finished at least brushing down everything and hoovering up all the loose dust and whatnot with the vacuum. The only thing I've really got left is to just get a very slightly damp cloth and just wiping down some of the surfaces in there. And the Ryzen 13800X is clean, ready to go in the new computer. Yeah, we've got all the cooler nice and clean, free of dust as well. Most of the components inside were relatively clean. Like I said, I do semi-regularly clean out the computer. Just maybe it's just been a while, and the fans and whatnot have been clogged up, and the general bits that are hard to get to. But I had to do minimal cleaning to get the motherboard nice and clean. Just a little bit in VRM heat sinks. The RAMs were all clean, no Vipers. And the graphics card, which going in another computer, that was all relatively clean as well. So that is going to be ready to go. So yeah, I've just got to give things a last little wipe down before I start putting things back in. But yeah, the fans, clean, they're all nice and clean. Yeah. CPU corner fans nice and clean as well. It does take a bit of time to go through it. Make sure you use a brush that you don't really care that's going to end up looking a bit like that, because yeah, that's ruined now, but still, it's a really good method to getting it really clean. In some ways, I think even better than using canned air. So yeah, I'm going to give stuff a wipe down, and then we're going to be ready for putting everything back in along with the new components as well. Okay, so now that's done, I don't know if you can really see the difference, hopefully you can, but just gone over everything with a very, very slightly dampened cloth, and yeah, it's all looking spick and span now, ready to go, and I'm going to start chucking everything back in. Okay, so I have installed the case fans and ready to move on to the next part, which will of course be fitting in the PSU. So, make it a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to get the power cables pre-connected while I've got space to work. So we've got the 24 pin for the power supply to the motherboard, and we've got CPU power supply. Now, I know I only need realistically one cable for the Ryzen 5900X, but I'm going to install two, so there's 12 pins available on the board. It's more than enough. 8 pin really is more than enough, especially with such a PSU as the Corsair. But I'm one of those people, if you kind of got it, use it. Why not? What is going to be the harm? Then we've got PCIe connectors, and then obviously a single PCI Express, because the RX 7900 XT needs 3 8-pin. So yeah, lots of power, and then just a SATA power supply for my SSDs. I won't be using the SSDs long term, but they'll be getting plugged back in, so a bit of data recovery, and then they'll be reused in other places as well. So yeah, let's start with getting some of these. that is all the cables plugged in that I'm going to need. But the SATA power supplies will be coming out at some point because they're not entirely necessary for the long term anyway. So yeah, so next thing will be put the RAM back in the motherboard. So I'm going to be fitting the CPU before we mount the motherboard in the case. Okay, now we're going to look at getting the motherboard in place, and yet I have skipped the CPU for the moment, but I'm not perfect. But, just slots in beautifully, just like that. And we use the magnetic screwdriver to get these in. Alright, now it's time to get the 5900 out and get it fixed in. And of course, you get a big empty box inside because you don't get a cooler with these, but you do get a cool little sticker which will be going straight in the bin. Also, always be careful when you're getting them out of these boxes. You don't want it to drop out and damage your CPU. Find your gold corner and line it in the correct area. Got to lift my lever up because I never did to get it out in the first place. And then just push the tension bar down. Okay, that is looking good in there. Alright, now thermal paste, I've not gone overly fancy with this, it's just a good old Arctic MX4. Decent, reliable thermal paste. I'm just going to get a nice large pea size, well, semi-large pea size. Dollop in the middle. Just make sure I've got no debris still on the bottom of contact plate. We want to purchase between the cooling plate and the CPU as good as possible. Now if you've got a large CPU like this, obviously make sure you've got the correct side facing the right way to make sure it clears your RAM. I really should have a longer screwdriver head than this, so that it could go straight down the channel. I had a very long one and I cannot find that anymore either. And now you're just going to want to keep pressure applied down quite evenly, and just one at a time tighten those screws up. Nice and secure and ready to go. Right, so next bit is going to be getting the fans back on the CPU cooler. I'm going to figure out what I'm doing next. Right, nice and clean and ready to rock. Alright, next on the agenda is going to be doing some of our cabling. And for back, not all cases are very generous with the amount of space you have to play with, but yeah, this is definitely one of my least favourite parts, is trying to get these in, because my hands genuinely don't want to fit. I guess it might be easier to say, why didn't you put it on before the CPU cooler? That is a very good point. Maybe a point that I never actually quite remember. And there's two. Thank goodness for that. Okay, I'm just trying to pull those back through as neatly as possible. Alright. Well, I'm going to get this back on the side, and yeah, we need to install our NVMe drives. Now the crucial is rated just that a little bit faster. Okay, so we're going to get the two NVMe drives plugged in. Again, not very easy for someone that's got stupid big hands, but it's about a 30-degree angle, I believe. I just want to slot it straight in there. Okay. And even more importantly, with these tiny screws, is a magnetic screwdriver, because they are no fun at all. And then just going to push them down. That's good. And we get the next minute screw. Push down. And there we go. 4 terabytes of NVMe goodness installed. Right. probably be getting the heatsink on for NVMe number 1. There we are done. And the cat in the background is saying, "Where's my food?" So I might just do that, and then we'll move on to the next bit. And the next bit is going to be getting this bad boy out. And there she is. The RX 7900 XTX. Now, this is a giant beast. I mean, when I got the 5700, obviously there's smaller variants. It's definitely a sizable difference between the two of them. When I got the 5700, it was a big car. Not anymore. It's always very satisfying when you get to do this on a brand new product, and then you use it and it all gets ruined. Yeah, this is a very, very sticky and resistant plastic deal. But it is no match for me. Alright. It's gonna be some beast sitting in there, isn't it? Well. PCI protector off, and yeah, I'll get the computer on the side and we'll move on to getting this bad boy installed. Alright, first off we're going to need to get this support bar installed. Alright, so I've just had to look up what I'm doing because I've not installed a graphics card with a support bar before. So I'm just going to take a picture. There we go. Yeah, I don't really want to take these out if I don't need to. We do supply a little spacing bracket Now I'm figuring if I don't take them out, it might not need that space in there. Now we just got to get some screws. Nope, that's not what I wanted to happen at all. Okay, and there we have, hopefully, one 5700. 5700? That's the old one. 9700 XT. Firmly in place. Yeah, feels nice and solid to me. I don't want to wriggle it around too much, but yeah, I mean that's pretty good. Okay, now probably got a figure of getting. Just realised that I didn't fit the cover back in. However, I'm not so sure it would fit. It would fit just so. I'm going to try and do it. Without having to take the card back out, but I might need to take the card back out. Nope, that was lucky. Alright, there is that. We've also got the hard drive cage to fit back into. Oops. I've just got to fix the screws in for the hard drive cage and for the cable cover as well. And I've got to do some cable management, so I'm going to fix these in place and then I'm going to work out the route of the cables. Also we've got the shroud for the PSU as well, so I'm going to do that and I'll be back in a sec. It certainly is heavy now. It's a lot of weight. Okay, release the cage, minus the cage speed. Get away. I'm just going to get a bit more dust off the back of the motherboard, which I neglected to do. Alright, well, still Not amazing. That's what I have to do. I have to say, and I'm probably not alone here, cable management is one of my least favourite parts, which takes me to the next part. Almost. I mean, I've got to just fit the hard drive cables back in. They're in place. I've got the rest of the cables to run, so I'm not gonna record that. I'm just gonna get that done, and we'll be back for the finished product. All right, so I have finished the cable management, and like I said before, it is by no means my strong suit, but you know, it's also not the worst in the world. So I don't think it's a bad looking machine actually. I quite like it. It's obviously similar to the aesthetics that I went for before, because it's a very similar toned card, but it's still looking my sort of computer anyway. Right, so all I've got to do now is I'm going to clean up the glass panel, retrieve the filter, the mesh filters, just give the back panel a clean as well, make sure that's alright. Fit them back on, and I know I should have done it by now. I haven't done the test, so it's all done. It's all cable tied in place. So fingers crossed, it all works fine. Yeah, famous last words. But I will be back with the last shot of the clean computer, all sides, all filters back on, and then I will be going for an install. I'm not going to do that. I'll do that off camera, but I will come back with some benchmarks and whatnot, just to see how it goes. I realised that I didn't do any prior benchmarks to compare what was and what is now, but just for just for benchmark's sake, we will do a few benchmarks and see how she does. Okay, so that is the build finish. Obviously, it's not a brand new build. Case is looking a little bit used in places, but you know, I wasn't finished with the AM4 upgrade path. AM4 is still a very relevant platform in my opinion, and especially when I can upgrade from 3000 series to, well, not just a 3000 series, but a 8-core 3000 series Ryzen processor up to a 12-core 5000 series Ryzen processor. Going to see so much improvement there on productivity side, along with the 4 terabytes of NVMe storage as well. It's going to make such a difference. But the big thing that's going to make the most monstrous change to the setup is the graphics card. Going from the good old 8GB RX 5700 XT, which has done me well over the years, but upgrading from that to the 7900 XTX is just going to be game changing. Now, I know I'm not going to have all the bells and whistles when it comes to ray tracing and whatnot, but I mean, I'll enjoy it if there are titles that I want to play that it can perform well enough on with ray tracing. If not, I'll live without it for the moment. I am that sort of person that will use something if it is there, but I won't be silly and spend such stupid money on NVIDIA graphics cards. And then if you come down in the price range in the NVIDIA range, yes, the cards can still do ray tracing, but I feel like if you're going to have ray tracing, it needs to be full fat ray tracing, and I don't think anyone should be paying £2,000 for that privilege. It will change in the future, obviously, and it'll become more accessible for people, but for the moment, this is going to do me for many years to come, and I think it's going to do just fine.
Okay, so now the PC is fully cleaned, rebuilt, and a much better spec than it was before. It was time to get into some benchmarking, and we kicked off with some Cinebench benchmarks. So the first benchmark I did got a score of 18,475, which is a little bit, it's okay, but that was just a default everything. So I went on to do another test, and that came out at 20,245 after a 0.075 undervolt. And then we went up a little bit more and still managed to stable 10-minute run through, and we got a score of 20,647. And then I pushed it a little bit more with an offset of 0.1125 which left the core voltage actually running around about 1.375, and during the benchmark it was hitting 4.3 gigahertz, and it runs stable. So as long as it stays stable, I think I'd leave it at that. It'll help it run cooler, and unless something ends up seeming unstable, then I think I'd be happy with that. It's quite a big offset, but it seems to be working okay right now. Next, we went on to some gaming benchmarks, and we kicked off with Civilization's AI benchmark tool. Just note, these benchmarks were done before the undervolt and whatnot, so I might be experiencing better results in real life after that. But as it stood when I did the benchmarks, we received back an average turn time of 33.79, which is reasonable enough, I think, for a big Civilization player. I know how slow things can get when you get towards the end game, and yeah, I was happy enough with what I saw with that result. Next up is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So the first benchmark I ran was obviously at full 4K, no reduced resolution, no AMD Fidelity FX, no Intel XTX. So everything whacked on all the way up, and we came out there with an average FPS of 80, which is respectable enough. And then we went on to do another benchmark, and next up was the Intel XTX running at ultra quality, and that came back with an average FPS of 128, which is about nearly 50 extra FPS a second. I didn't bother doing a benchmark with the AMD Fidelity FX CAS because it does minimal really to boost performance, unless I was to do something within Radeon software, which, I mean, the Intel interpretation of this software is pretty good, to be fair. So then all that was left was to do another run with Intel XTX on balanced, and in that circumstance we came back with an average FPS of 153, which topped out my 4K sort of refresh rate of 144, and yeah, it looked really good, to be fair, even on balanced. And yeah, now I can be maxing out my screen refresh rate on 4K, admittedly using the Intel XTX on balanced. It still looked really good, like I said, so a really good result there. Next up was Far Cry 6, running at 4K, of course. We did have DXR reflections and shadows on. We did utilize the Fidelity FX CAS and variable shading as well, and everything was set to ultra with the added HD textures added on top as well. And in that test, again, I feel like it did very well, and it came back with an average FPS of 91. Yeah, there could have been some things I fiddled with to get a higher refresh there, but I only did the one run through with Far Cry 6. I feel at 4K 91 frames per second is very admirable as well. Okay, so lastly we had Assassin's Creed Valhalla, again obviously running at 4K, using the ultra high preset, everything whacked right up as far as it could go, not utilizing any of the upsampling. So obviously there is room where we could garner a better result. However, after that benchmark with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we came back with an average of 102 frames per second, which is, yeah, again, very admirable, I think, at 4K, everything whacked on, no upsampling. There are some disappointing lows of 30, which was a little bit concerning. However, again, if we're utilizing an upsampling software, then that, I think, would no longer be a problem. Again, another really good result at 4K, getting into the 3 figures for average frames per second. So yeah, that concludes all the benchmarking that I did. Yeah, so all I'm looking forward to now is really just sinking my teeth into this upgraded beast and getting the best out of it I can. So yeah, that's where we're going to leave it for today. If you've watched through, I hope you've enjoyed this content today, and I hope you have a brilliant rest of your day, and can't wait to make some more content with the upgraded computer. So until next time, see ya.